Hello and welcome back to Media Literacy Workshop. Well, I hope that our last meeting was very fruitful. You have gathered important information on diversity as I read through your comments and posts on the discussion on Telegram. I noticed that you started addressing some of the immediate issues concerning diversity in media. So let's start. This week, we will talk about media literacy in terms of how media portrays different groups. So just to summarize last session, as you remember, we have talked about diversity as a term. So what is diversity and what is the relationship between diversity and media and how can media messages be diverse? So just to summarize, to have diversity in the media, we must think about two important points. As usual, it's what is being told and who is telling the message, be it a news message, be it an advertisement or a movie, any type of media message. So what is the message and who is the producer? Also, a diverse media means representing different people in media messages and having different people create and deliver the media messages. So media messages developed and delivered by the same group of people are not always relevant because they may not be compatible with the needs and portrayals of other groups. Also, diversity in the media means telling the stories of the different groups of a society. So this included not only the dominant group, which shared the power status, but minority groups as well. Also, we tackled some of the issues, how diversity can affect the portrayal of some of the minority groups. In our today's session, we will mostly talk about how media portrays different groups and what kind of negativity can arise from this and what to be careful about. So let's start. So first thing we should know is media is conveyor of social information. Most of us serve the media, be it social network, be it advertisements, newspapers, or any other media message. We convey information through media, and we tend to believe what we read or what we see in the media. So studies show that mass media fall under two main categories with regard to minorities. So first, how media describes minorities and also the effect of this portrayal on the audiences, both on the minority groups and majority groups. We will mostly discuss today's topic in terms of the United States, but we will take a look at the current situation in Uzbekistan and discuss some of the local media messages as well. So, when talking about portrayal, perhaps entertainment is the biggest industry that gives us the portrayal, right? So we all watch movies, we watch advertisements, we watch different media messages created for the purpose of entertainment and marketing. So entertainment is probably one of the biggest parts of media messages. So in the entertainment industry, there are three methods to describe minorities. First, counting the number of different characters of various races. So whenever you watch a movie or you come across an advertisement, then take a look. Are people of the same group portrayed in those pieces of media? Or can you see racial or ethnic diversity? Second, assessing the significance of each character in a program. So if you are watching a movie, pay attention how minorities are portrayed. For example, are Black people always perpetrators? Are Asians always immigrants? And etc. Third, you have to be aware of similarities, differences, and interactions between characters played by people of different races. So, how do they interact? Are white people always polite, educated, while Black people are mostly portrayed as people from the street? So, you have to be very careful when analyzing the different types of portrayals on minorities in entertainment media. So now I would like you to talk about any television show, any movie that you frequently watch, and please discuss the following questions. In the movie that you enjoy, are minority characters underrepresented on television? By minority here, if we take Hollywood, for example, I mean Latinos, Asians, Black people, Native Americans, and etc. Next, do their numbers on television match their number in society? Well, also, have you noticed that there is a huge increase in the portrayal of minorities in these shows? Or does it follow a different trend? So let's see. Um, we have Noizima. Noizima, if you would like to talk, you can unmute yourself and discuss any show, any TV, soap opera, or anything that you frequently watch on TV and discuss. So, what is your view with regard to minorities? Or you may type in the chat if you prefer.
Uh, Hello,
Hello,
good evening.
good evening.
You mean any program
Yes,
on
any
television?
program that is show, but that would be better if it's for entertainment, like movies
Mhm,
or soap operas or something like that. I'm sure
mhm.
you do watch movies or shows, right?
And yes, I do. Well, mostly I prefer to watch movies, soap opera, and especially so recently I have finished soap opera called Friends.
Okay, great, because today we will talk about Friends. So before we get to that point, what do you think? Are minority characters underrepresented on this show or not?
Um, well, Um, I think yes, and they are underrepresented. Uh, and on the movie, um, m- um, not majority people are not represented. Only the characters of the movie represented, and also as you said that. Uh, you may watch the black people on the movie.
Okay, all right. So what about their number? For example, number of Black characters in Friends, do they match actual view of New York? What do you think? So the setting is New York, right?
Yes.
New York is a
Uh-huh.
diverse city. So do you think that
Mhm.
if
Yes,
you
there
watch
are
this,
lots of
okay,
number. There are, as you know, there are a lot of black people in New York in America, but on movies, on programs, you rarely watch them,
all
and
right.
I mean they don't match. So
Uh-huh.
and the movie and the society.
Great. So their numbers don't match, right? Thank you, Nazi,
Yes.
so much. Okay. So good. And we will come back to the topic of friends in our later slides. Now, role comparison. So it's not only about the amount, how many people, uh, let's say, representing minorities you see on the shows, but that's the role of the minorities as well. So most of the time, you can notice that media portrays white people or power groups differently than minorities on the following terms. First, characterization. It means that majority of, let's say, lead characters, they're white people. And white people are mostly educated, prominent, and etc. Second, in terms of violence. So you can notice that most of the violent scenes represent minorities bombed by an Arab or kidnapped by a Latino. So that's more frequent than power groups. Occupations, for example, you rarely see, let's say, Latino doctor in American shows, right? And of course, age. That you can see that Black people are mostly either young children or elderly, so you cannot really see very exemplary middle-aged people in this group. And there are many other factors, let's say, causing the division between power groups and minority groups. So every time you watch any entertainment message, you have to be able to analyze, are minority groups portrayed, um, let's say, differently than not minority groups? And in what terms are they portrayed differently? Well, advertisement is an industry that's growing year by year and it makes millions of dollars each year. If you notice, if you watch advertisement for amusement or just for interest, you can notice that Blacks and Asian Americans have made significant gains in some media, but other minorities remain underrepresented. You never see Native American advertising some product. Also, the appearance of Blacks in magazine ads and television ads has increased over the years, while it's not the same with the other minority groups in the US. Still, the huge amount of portrayal goes to white people in advertisement industry. Well, so how does it affect? I mean, minorities are portrayed differently or they are not portrayed enough, they are underrepresented, and how it affects the audience. First, viewers enjoy seeing the people of their own color in the media. So when they don't see the type of people they are, it causes confusion. Also, Black youngsters are more likely to believe that television portrayals of Blacks and non-Blacks are realistic. So white children use television as a primary source of information about Black children, which causes prejudice. And also, Black children or the children of other minority groups use information from television much more extensively in their lives. So portrayal can affect how the audience, especially young people or children, see the world, see the minority groups, which can produce prejudice and stereotype in the society. Also, it has huge negative effects on minority audiences. So children of ethnic minorities, when watching shows, they have distinct and different preferences in television programs. Also, they have particular orientations towards mass media, and they start responding with similar behaviors to programs that include minority character portrayals. So television can become their teacher and teach them who they are. shaping their identity and personality. And sometimes they use television shows as source of instruction, which means that that's the reason why children of ethnic minorities tend to act exactly the same as they are portrayed on entertainment industry messages. So these are the huge impacts that entertainment industry or entertainment media can have on minority children. So now, if we take a look at the negative consequences in detail, we can see that ethnic minorities are sure represented within the media because it's impossible to exclude them totally. But their representation differs. First, they are mostly underrepresented. Second, they are represented in a stereotypical way. So that's like Black people always being perpetrators, Asians always being immigrants, and etc. Also, they are represented negatively. Uneducated, without jobs, not in lead roles. And most of the time, Latinos, for example, represented as criminals. Arabs are represented as a threat, and sometimes their cultures are referred as abnormal. So you can see that mostly media industry showcases the power culture while kind of referring to the culture of minorities as something out of normal, let's say, accepted, um, socially accepted ways. And also, they are made to seem unimportant or invisible. They are never important people in those shows. And most of the time, they are depicted as dependents. So these are the way how ethnic minorities are negatively represented in today's media. While it's not the case with every show, with every program, the majority of programs produced still represent ethnic minorities in such a way. So when talking about those aspects, we will start with underrepresentation and stereotyping. Hollywood is the biggest machine for producing perhaps the most prominent part of entertainment media. And Hollywood has a history of not integrating minority roles into their media, despite racial diversity. In other words, they try to avoid casting people of color. And many shows, many productions of Hollywood have often been criticized because of, let's say, racist practices. But now the tendencies are changing. If you watch historical movie The Birth of a Nation, you can see that portrayed black characters, uh, black characters portrayed as buffoons. Well, that was very much different than the, let's say, exact historical base. So another example is Yellowface in Breakfast at Tiffany's, very random, inconsequential character of bumbling, annoying Japanese neighbor played by a white man. And also, there is something called whitewashing in Hollywood, let's say, practices of producing media. So whitewashing is when you have a very prominent, interesting story of a different nation or an ethnic minority, then you pick up that story. And for the lead role, you choose power group people, like white people. Just like Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's an action movie. So while this cartoon consisted entirely of ethnic Asians, you can see that movie had predominantly white cast. So they were represented by white people, which was irrelevant and at the same time represented racial prejudices. So if you take a look at any show produced for entertainment, you can see this kind of damaging underrepresentation and stereotyping in terms of diversity. Also, there is misrepresentation that takes place in entertainment industry, and it influences how audience views those characters. So if you watch American television shows, films very often, you see that Latinos play maids and gardeners, then lawyers and doctors, right? And also Hispanic men and women have both been, let's say, sexually exploited in Hollywood. They are always exotic or, let's say, included in body business and etc. If you watch any classic cinema, you can see Arabs are either belly dancers, harem girls, or sheikhs with lots of money. Well, Native Americans aren't being depicted as silent stoic types in film and television shows. No, they are mostly depicted as bloodthirsty warriors, killing white people, harming white women, and etc. Well, that's how those shows transcend different information or stereotyped information, which causes misrepresentation of the members of those minority groups. Now we know that America is a boiling pot of the world, and there are many different nations, ethnicities, and races living there. Still, you can notice that there is a huge misrepresentation and stereotypes taking place in entertainment media in regard with the representation of minorities. Also, media is pretty much dominated by white actors and their stories. So we have talked about Friends, you have mentioned Friends. If you take a look at Friends, it is setting is New York, one of the most racially diverse cities of the US. Yet all of the main characters are white. You don't see an Asian or black lead character in this show. Also, if you notice, almost all the secondary and minor characters are white too. They never date a black guy or a black girl. That happens very rarely. Only in the last seasons of the show, perhaps following some criticism from the audience. But in recent years, trends have changed. Some developments were introduced. So, for example, black actor John Boyega and others have started franchises that started a positive representation of minorities. So if you watch some specific shows, for example, Wakanda Forever, you will start noticing that other ethnic minorities also have stories to tell. They can also be portrayed as brave, prominent people. So the tendencies are mostly changing today as the audience is becoming more and more media literate towards entertainment industry. Well, another aspect that I mentioned that was misrepresentation or representation of minorities as criminals, as a threat, as moral panics. So there are studies that have roots and that have, let's say, strong causes. And some authors found very important, let's say, information on how ethnic minorities are portrayed differently in entertainment media. For example, one jig has found that Black people are portrayed with tabloid newspapers as criminals, organized gangs, drug dealers, and etc. Akinti also made findings in the television shows, and according to his views, while Black people are overly emphasized in terms of gun crime. They always carry guns, they shot someone. Another study found that Black people and other minorities are always involved somehow in criminality, described or portrayed as perpetrators, and sometimes they are portrayed as sportsmen as well. And Watson concludes that racial profiling, or let's say trying to make people fit into category, that has become a kind of a standard for entertainment industry. So today, audience is highly media literate, and more people are becoming aware of what media is doing, and they are not remaining silent. You have noticed that recently there has been a movement called Black Lives Matter, which, let's say, shaked not only the political scene, but also the media standards as well. Now, producers of media started paying more attention on the inclusion of ethnic minorities in American TV shows, advertisements, news media, and they are becoming more and more careful with how they portray different groups. And also, because of the media coverage of 9/11 attacks and others, well, Arabs and other Muslim groups have been portrayed as a threat to Western culture. And now, as a result, hate crimes against Muslims have increased over the world. Even today, you can see on the media that because of the burning of holy book of Muslims, there has been lots of political economic crisis in Europe. And just like this, immigrants are treated the same way by media. So they are often portrayed as coming to Europe or America just to abuse the welfare of the state and claim benefits or to steal the jobs of local people. So as the tendencies are changing, as audience, we can further push and help the media to be more relevant. So if the audience becomes more media literate, if we are able to judge, to analyze what media is saying, why media is saying that, and if media is relevant, then they will have to take into consideration the, let's say, the background or the desires of the audience. If desire is highly media literate, then media will have to match that level and they will become, let's say, more relevant, more impartial, and they will become very careful with the prejudice. So this is basically about how media portrays different groups. I hope that I could give you some view into how things are going on in the US as we mostly watch entertainment media from Hollywood, and we mostly learn American English here. So the main source of, let's say, entertainment media for us comes either from Hollywood or European movies. So I'm sure that next time you watch any show, any movie, you will pay attention to the aspects or the points that we have discussed today. Well, regarding the future, I hope that future holds some hope as tendencies are changing this year. The show called Little Mermaid is, let's say, being produced. And here, for the first time, Little Mermaid is played by a Black person. Also, the marketers are now trying to analyze and make different standards based on the demographic, let's say, demographics of the characters in the TV shows. And we do hope that things will change. And now, as an audience, we can also contribute to the progress by analyzing, by being careful about what we are consuming through media, and this can bring changes. Well, regarding our local media, you can see that maybe we don't have this many different ethnic or racial groups in Uzbekistan, but women are always represented or differently or misrepresented in our entertainment media. They are either girls, let's say, running after a husband, or either they are bride-in-law, and there is always mother-in-law torturing brides-in-law. So portrayals should change. It's high time that we change because those images are teaching something to young generation. So in your reflections today, you will mostly pay attention to our local media, pick up the moments about misrepresentation, stereotyping of women or different groups like gypsies, maybe, or people from regions, and just try to reflect on what you have learned from media literacy workshop today's session. Also, we will have big summary session next Tuesday, where we will, let's say, summarize all the main topics, 6 main topic areas that we have covered throughout this workshop. And then I will explain you your assignments. So as our workshop is driving close to its end, you will be required to prepare your digital portfolios. So starting from the next session, I will give you detailed tutorials and examples just to start your big assignment. So for now, you will reflect on today's session and you will mention what you have learned from media literacy workshop today's session, and just mention some of the points with stereotyping and misrepresentation that you have come across in local media in Uzbekistan. So in the next session, we will summarize the whole workshop, every topic area that we have covered so far. So if you have questions, you can leave them in the chat. And now we will move on to the language development part. And here you will have a short video about how media portrays different groups.
Hello. In this video, we will discuss the concepts of race and ethnicity and discuss how the media influences our understanding of race and ethnicity. Before we can talk about race and ethnicity in the media, we must first discuss the concepts of race and ethnicity. Race is not an easy word to define. People use the word race to refer to a group of people that have something in common. Some people define race as a group of people who have similar physical features such as skin color or hair color. Other people say that race is based not just on physical features, but also culture. Culture is the beliefs, customs, arts, language, and other aspects of a particular group of people. People often define ethnicity as a group of people who share similar physical features and culture. However, some people define ethnicity only in terms of culture. We will talk more about culture in the next video. There are differences in the definition and understanding of race and ethnicity because they are both ideas that were created by society in order to group people together. The ideas and definitions of race and ethnicity have changed over time and will continue to change. Now let's discuss how the media influences our understanding of race and ethnicity. To influence means to affect or impact. As we mentioned before, if people constantly see messages about a group of people, they may start to believe them even if the messages are not true or are stereotypes. Remember, to stereotype means to unfairly group all people with a particular characteristic together. To stereotype means to think or believe that all people from the same group are the same in some way. Stereotypes are unfair and can cause conflict or bad feelings between people of different races and ethnicities. In the article you read titled "Minorities See Improvement, Demand More Diversity on U.S. Television," the author explains how a group might be stereotyped. The article discussed how Latinos are shown in the media. The president of the National Hispanic Media Coalition explained that Latinos are not shown as much as they should be on television. And when they are shown, they are never shown as judges, doctors, or other professionals. This article is an example of why we must be sure to think critically about the messages we are receiving about race from the media. We must ask ourselves, are different groups included in the media messages we see? Are those messages fairly and accurately describing and showing people from different groups? In addition, we want to think back to one of the questions we should ask ourselves of all media messages. Who created the message? Are members of different racial and ethnic groups creating the messages about the people in their group? Are they telling their own stories? If they are not, this could be a reason why these groups are not fairly or accurately shown. Let's summarize. Race and ethnicity are not easy words to define. Both words are used to group or separate people. The media messages that we receive about race and ethnicity influence how we think about race and ethnicity in our everyday lives. To be media literate, we should ask ourselves if different groups are included and are accurate